Hello, this is Paul Hutchins. Don't forget, if you're new to this channel, to like and subscribe to it. In that way you'll get all the updates that come available as soon as they're available and I get a chance to watch them. This particular channel has been put together by me to try and add value to you in terms of providing information you might find interesting or you might be able to engage in around sustainability, renewable energy and climate change. Eco2 Solar recently conducted a survey of 1,000 homeowners and renters to find out what their views were on sustainability and renewable energy and climate change generally. In fact, if you want to see the results of the survey, click on the description below and you'll be able to see the results for yourself. Some of them were really quite interesting actually. So 68% of people, for example, said they are taking some measures within their house to reduce their energy. For example, turning lights off or reducing their heating. Or 57% of people are saying they're looking at cycling and walking more. So some really interesting results there. And it's been really interesting for us to see what people really think on the street as opposed to what we think they should think. I think we should be more concerned. If you look at the website of the Met Office, for example, they're predicting more heat waves, more flooding caused by more rain, but also more extreme weather events. And if you look at the graph on their website, you'll see that extreme weather events are up by 3 times since 1980. So, we need to look at that as a predictor really where our future might be going. And yes, we should be more concerned. I think there is a trend for different demographics of people to feel differently about climate change. And actually, I think in many ways, older people, and we're talking, sort of before baby boomer really, there's the older people that live through wars and so on, are quite used to using paper bags and not plastic bags and quite used to not really travelling very far and doing things that were kind of naturally sustainable. And I think that if you look at the younger generation who've become grown up, if you like, and become educated throughout this whole climate change crisis, and it's really part of their consciousness, I think that's something that they're very concerned about and want to do something about. I think that those middle generations, we came through in the sort of 60s and 70s and the 80s, the age of consumerism and more plastic, more convenience. And I think that's really the key to where we sort of lost our way a little bit. And I think that actually, if you look at the younger generation, they are looking at bringing that back and maybe being more sustainable again, which is great. A survey that we ran recently was really encouraging and showed, for example, that 68% of people are taking measures to reduce their energy use at home by things like turning lights off and turning their heating down. And actually quite a number are also looking at reducing their food waste or actually walking or cycling to work. I think this is really important. It isn't just the percentages here, but it's also the trend in change of people's behaviour. And I think the fact that people are now taking this seriously and starting to build sustainability into their lifestyles is the key thing. And that's what's really important. Preventing food waste is obviously really important for a number of different reasons. You remember your mum said to you years ago, make sure you eat that, otherwise I'm going to send it to the starving children in Africa. And I think that's still very much the case, is that there's a scarcity of food and resources and we shouldn't be wasting them. But also there's a carbon requirement, isn't there, in terms of getting rid of things, in terms of recycling waste or repurposing it or putting it onto landfill. So we should be looking at our food waste, reducing what we buy, making sure we eat it and reducing the amount we waste in whatever way. Maybe we can send stuff to food banks or whatever. But there's so many other things that we can do as well, in terms of looking at turning the heating down, in terms of making our energy generally more efficient, and looking at how we move around. Our whole transport is really important as part of the energy mix. So we need to be looking at our whole lifestyles. I think that's the key. I think the transport thing is highly significant, and I think really what we're looking at is an exponential trend. Now, exponentials are really not very well understood by people. We tend to think in a linear fashion, 1 + 1 + 1 = 3, whereas exponentials double, which means that things get bigger and bigger much faster than we expect, particularly as they start to gain some pace. So if you look at, for example, electric vehicles, the trend in electric vehicles, there still might only be maybe 100,000 in the UK, but the trend shows if it carries on the way it is and keeps doubling, we're going to end up with millions of them over the next few years. Obviously, the ban on petrol and diesel cars by 2035 is going to accelerate that as well, and also encourage people, I think, to look at all alternative ways of transport, which could be using public transport, could be walking, could be cycling, or using more sustainable vehicles generally.